Today we're talking about 5 Hulk stories that should be made into movies. Unfortunately, we've only gotten 2 solo live-action Hulk films, 2003's Hulk and 2008's The Incredible Hulk, which was the second MCU film. Since then, Hulk has only appeared in other live-action MCU films like the Avengers movies and Thor Ragnarok. Now, this is because Universal Pictures owns the rights to make solo Hulk films and has to allow Marvel Studios to do so, which they currently are not. However, Marvel Studios can use Hulk in movies or shows that aren't his own, which is why they've been doing that for the majority of the MCU. But if they could or do end up making solo Hulk films again, which stories should they pull from? Well, we have 5 killer ones we think they should consider using. The first story I think they should pull from is Hulk Gray by comic greats Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale. The whole premise of this series is going back to Banner's early days as the Hulk. It's an origin story that's not really an origin story, but rather showing us on a deep emotional level the toll transforming into the Hulk took on him in those early days. That's not to say it's not consistently taking a toll on him and everyone around him to this day, but this story explores the initial emotional impact becoming the Hulk took. And not just on him, also on those closest to him, specifically Betty Ross. For instance, in issue 1 of the story, it recounts Banner getting blasted with the gamma radiation to protect Rick Jones from the gamma bomb. General Ross then says, "We just set off possibly the most powerful weapon on the face of the earth with a man out there at ground zero? What the hell is wrong with you people? We have the all clear, so now I want every available man out there looking for Banner. This country is not going to lose an asset," as Betty is concerned about Banner. Now obviously Ross doesn't find Banner and Rick go to a doctor so Banner can get checked out. The doctor says, "Since I can't see anything wrong with you, you might as well go home." Rick then goes up to Banner and says, "You hear that? You're gonna be okay. I still can't believe you stuck your neck out for me coming out onto that field." Banner then just grabs Rick saying, "You stupid kid, it's not going to be okay. It's never going to be okay. There will be an army looking for me and hearings and inquiries. I saved your life, but it ruined mine. No one could take that much gamma radiation and live. Something's going to happen, something bad." Rick says, "What are you talking about? You're here, aren't you?" Banner just gets mad and his eyes glow green as he turns into the Hulk for the first time, with Rick looking on in horror saying, "Dude, what are you?" As we see a Grey Hulk stand before him saying, "The strongest there is." Rick then says, "Man, you're like some kind of hulking." The Hulk then just says, "Hulk." Captions then say, "He wasn't green at first. I've heard some theories about that over the years. I have some of my own, but I digress." So from here we go on to see how Banner deals with becoming the Hulk with tons of internal monologue as we see the struggle Banner is really going through looking for Betty for the first time after being attacked by General Ross, which just sees him as an asset. Now I realize this would kind of sort of be like an origin tale yet again, but it also would be very different, as I think it would be awesome for the MCU to show us this. That the Hulk was gray once upon a time and touch on that whole aspect of the character as it's even talked about by Banner himself in the book. But the story is more of a reflective look back at those early years with Bruce narrating what he went through and what it was like for him. For the film, you could even frame it as Banner having a therapy session as he recounts early moments like these in his life. It doesn't have to be exactly like the comic, just inspired by it. Like most superhero films, they all take inspiration from a comic story, but they're rarely ever beat for beat. Hell, it would even fit in easily with the MCU continuity because by issue 3, Iron Man shows up in his gold V2 Mark I armor to fight Hulk, who's rampaging across the country. And this lines up perfectly because, as we know, the first 2 MCU films were Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk, both releasing in 2008. So it makes sense for them to meet this early, especially since the Iron Man film was before Hulk, meaning Iron Man was already established in his early armor. And by the end of the series, Hulk becomes his iconic green. But either way, since it's been so long since we've gotten a solo Hulk film, I think it would be a fun way to kind of talk about his beginnings again without full-on doing an origin. It could also add more depth and mythology to the Hulk earlier on in the MCU, as well as other characters like Iron Man. Next up, we have probably one of the most requested Hulk films ever, and that of course is Hulk versus Wolverine. Hell, this was briefly teased with an alternate version of Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine. The Hulk and Wolverine rift is one of the most iconic rivalries in comic books, and that's because Wolverine's first appearance was in a Hulk comic, Hulk 181 to be exact, and ever since the two have had a rivalry. Could you imagine how amazing a Hulk versus Wolverine movie would be, where Wolverine, much like in his first appearance, was hired to take down a rampaging Hulk, but in the midst of all that, saw Hulk getting attacked by a Wendigo, so Wolverine is now having to fight 2 massive monsters? I also think this would double as a way to introduce a brand new Wolverine into the MCU. We could first see this version of Wolverine trying to take down the Hulk, who's going berserk. Don't get me wrong, I like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine as much as the next guy, but he's been playing the character for over 20 years, and he's not going to be able to do it forever. So I think he needs to transition into more of an old man Logan and make room for a new Wolverine in his prime. Either way, I think a Hulk versus Wolverine movie would be something us fans have been wanting for a long time, but also allowing the elements of the mutant world to be introduced into the MCU in a big way. I mean, you could full on start introducing introducing Weapon X and all the people behind Wolverine's creation. You could even make it to where Wolverine's creation, or part of his creation, was to take down the Hulk, as he's a massive threat. If the MCU ever wants to give us a rampaging normal Hulk we all love once again, something's gotta give. The Hulk Wolverine movie could kind of be like a hodgepodge of all the iconic Hulk and Wolverine fights. Obviously, Hulk 181 would serve as the main inspiration, but seeing epic moments that happen in comics, like in Savage Wolverine issue 5, where Wolverine stabs Hulk in the head with both of his claws, would be insane. I mean, in this specific instance, since Wolverine was able to stab Hulk right through the head with both of his claws, he was temporarily able to kill the Hulk, winning the fight. That would be amazing to see, where Wolverine's like, yeah, I beat him, only to find out this dude has arguably a better healing factor than him, and now he's alive again for round 2. Actually, it would be cool to go down that route, where the whole movie was 3 different rounds, with the Hulk winning the first one, Wolverine taking the second, and then having an epic boss battle in the end. But either way, I think we could all agree we want to see this movie, so let's move on to different Hulk stories. The next Hulk story that absolutely needs to be made into a movie is Planet Hulk. Planet Hulk is easily one of the best Hulk stories to come out ever, certainly in the modern era of comic books. Now, I know that the Planet Hulk storyline was sort of kind of touched on in Thor Ragnarok, but in my opinion, it was so poorly done. I don't even think you could say that it was an adaptation. They just took elements of it, like Hulk being a gladiator on the planet Sakaar and introducing Korg and some others, but besides that, it had nothing to do with the Planet Hulk storyline. So let's quickly break down the Planet Hulk storyline to show you how epic of a movie it could be if they followed the core story beats. Planet Hulk starts off with the Illuminati deeming the Hulk to be too dangerous to stay on planet Earth. If you don't know, the Illuminati are a group of the most influential minds on the planet. It's comprised of Iron Man, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, and Black Bolt in this specific iteration. How it all starts is they trick Hulk to get onto a spaceship, at which point they launch him into space towards a planet where he could live in isolation. But of course, things don't go according to plan, and instead of landing on an isolated planet where he could live by himself, not hurting anyone, the ship goes off course and crash lands on a planet named Sakaar. It's a planet that's consistently at war and led by the tyrannical Red King. Like I said, this planet is constantly at war. It is all about it, so much so that on this savage world, gladiator combat is a way of life for them, so Hulk is instantly caught and enslaved to fight as one of their gladiators. Now you may be asking, how are they able to keep the Hulk? Well, he's enslaved with an obedience chip that forces him to fight as a gladiator. Now, of course, he's not happy about this, but over time he starts making friends with some of his fellow gladiators, becoming friends with Korg, Meek, and others who also hate the Red King. Eventually, Hulk becomes the #1 gladiator, defeating all of Red King's strongest warriors, at which point Hulk becomes a rebel leader, earns his freedom, and goes to take down the Red King, ultimately becoming the new king and leader of Sakaar. It's at this point he falls in love with Kyra and even has a child with her, with the Hulk finally being happy. But we know the Hulk can never have a happy ending, so the ship that he arrived in explodes, killing millions on his planet, even his lady love. Hulk deems the Illuminati responsible for said explosion, so vowing revenge, he heads back to Earth to get his revenge on the world's greatest heroes, which leads directly into World War Hulk, but more on that in a second. Can you imagine us getting a live-action Planet Hulk movie that follows all of these major beats? That could probably be the best MCU film we've ever gotten, if done right. Certainly one of the best, bare minimum. Again, I get we already saw Hulk as a gladiator on Sakaar and Ragnarok, but like after hearing my breakdown of Planet Hulk, you now see why a lot of us comic fans say we got robbed with Ragnarok. The Planet Hulk story hits on so many levels, dealing with the Hulk feeling betrayed and not wanted from the people who are supposed to be his friends. Then having to deal with being enslaved, forced to fight against his will, ultimately working his way to the top, defeating the tyrannical ruler, and becoming the planet's king is a pretty compelling story. It's literally like the Gladiator films meet the Hulk. That is an insane combination. You could probably even make the Planet Hulk storyline a 2-part movie and then end a trilogy with World War Hulk. That's how Planet Hulk ends, with the Hulk coming back to Earth to get his revenge, beginning the epic World War Hulk story, which is a great arc for a series of films. Which of course brings us to the 4th Hulk story that should be made into a Hulk film, and that is World War Hulk. Now, as Hulk is on his way to Earth to get revenge, he stops at the moon to battle the Illuminati member Black Bolt, who resides there. Hulk is all like, you shot me into space and killed my world. Medusa, who's by Black Bolt's side, says, stop. He's all like, never, and starts to attack Black Bolt, who releases his yell, but the Hulk's like, yeah, no, that ain't gonna stop me. Gets back up and says, I didn't come here for a whisper. I came here for a scream, as he makes easy work of Black Bolt. Hulk then makes his way to New York City and broadcasts a message to the entire planet being like, yeah, the Illuminati needs to surrender and they have 24 hours to do so, or I'm going to destroy all of Earth. Seems like the Hulk is not messing around. He wants the Illuminati dead, or he's willing to destroy all of Earth. At this point, it's just all-out war. Hulk and his Warbound are just destroying New York City and easily overpowering all of Earth's heroes like the Avengers, the X-Men, and Fantastic Four. Iron Man even breaks out his new Hulkbuster armor, but it's still not able to defeat the Hulk. Even the Sorcerer Supreme himself, Doctor Strange, tries to use all his magical power, summoning the demon Zom, now having the power of a demon, to fight the Hulk, and it still doesn't work. Hell, at this point, even Sentry is called in to stop the Hulk, and though the battle was close, Sentry still ultimately could not pull out the W. It's at this point Meek, one of Hulk's Warbound friends, reveals to the Hulk it was he who was responsible for the ship's explosion on Sakaar. This obviously enrages the Hulk, filling him with grief and betrayal. Now realizing that his whole war was built on a lie, he nearly kills Meek for it. The Hulk's rage is just all kinds of uncontrollable because he feels betrayed and lied to by everybody. Old friends, new friends, and his rage becomes too unbearable for Earth. So Tony activates one of his satellite weapons to rain fire on Hulk with energy blasts that revert Hulk back to Bruce Banner, at which point the Hulk is finally taken into custody by S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, with all that said, can you imagine seeing something like this live action where a King Hulk comes to Earth to get revenge on Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Reed Richards, Black Bolt, and wreak shop on all of Earth's heroes? Those would be some of the most insane battles we'd ever see live action in a superhero film. Hell, a Hulk versus Sentry fight? Oh my god, that would be everything. And we know the Sentry is being introduced in the Thunderbolts movie. But beside all the epicness this would be visually, the story alone is very compelling. His story is one of tragedy. It would be cinema gold if they could translate this properly into the MCU. Speaking of cinema gold, the last story we think should be made into a movie is Maestro Hulk. Now, if you don't know about Maestro Hulk, it's arguably the best version of the Hulk. The story of Maestro takes place in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world ravaged by nuclear war, and because of this, there's only a handful of survivors. But in this world, the Hulk is older and more powerful and becomes the Maestro, a tyrannical version of himself. He rules what's left of humanity in the world in a city called Dystopia, and he rules with an iron fist. Unlike your traditional Savage Hulk, this Hulk has the intelligence of Bruce Banner with the strength of the Incredible Hulk. He is the perfect amalgamation. Now, what's so amazing about this version of the Hulk is he has literally beaten everybody. He has an infamous trophy room with all the artifacts, weapons, costumes, and trophies of the people he's beaten. We're talking about Captain America's shield, Magneto's helmet, Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, Silver Surfer's freaking board, Thor's hammer, Doctor Strange's cloak, Spider-Man's mask, a Sentinel head, Iron Man's armor, like everything. This is a Hulk that either defeated or outlasted everybody. So seeing an older, intelligent, insanely strong, tyrannical ruler of a Hulk live action would make for some great storytelling.